Well, a seasonal switch is sweeping through the southeastern states with remarkably high temperatures for August. Parts of New South Wales are again under a high bushfire and grassfire risk with strong winds and warmer temperatures forecast. Queensland is expected to see unseasonably high temperatures in the days ahead with a maximum close to 40 degrees forecast in some parts of the state. And Tasmania will record its hottest August since records began in 1910, following the snow and wind of recent days. Meanwhile, in the southeast, multiple wind warnings have been reissued as another powerful cold front approaches from the Southern Ocean. The frequency of cold fronts and strong winds marks a battle for prominence unfolding across the south between very warm air over the mainland and cold polar air in the south. Well, I'm joined now by ABC meteorologist Tom Saunders. And Tom, let's start with the heat. Have we broken any more records today?
Kath, good afternoon. Yet again today, we have broken all-time winter records across the country. Now, let's find out what's happening. We've got very hot air through the north, but then these northwesterly winds today have carried that warm air all the way to the east coast, where temperatures have spiked up to 16 degrees above the August average. Let's have a look at some of the maximums we've had so far today, and many of these are records. Alice Springs, 36, hottest winter day on record. Birdsville, 40. That is not just a record for Birdsville, that's an all-time Queensland record for winter. Tibooburra, Burt, Cobar, they've all broken winter records today. And along the east coast, Sydney Airport, 32, that's a winter record. Wollongong, 30, that's been the warmest for a few decades there. Now, in Sydney, we've hit just over 30 degrees. That's at Observatory Hill. It's not quite a record, but it's the third warmest winter day on record, behind 30.4 in 1954 and 31.3 in 1995. Now, if we look at the forecast across the country tomorrow, you can see it cools down a few degrees for the last day of winter in New South Wales, although 26 in Sydney, that's still 8 above average. The warmest temperatures move further north. Brisbane, 34 degrees. That's going to challenge their all-time winter record, which sits at 35.4, Kath.
Tom, they're extraordinary record-breaking numbers. They're not just one, but plenty of them there. Can I get you to talk to the wild wind now? We know that there are warnings in force for multiple states and damaging winds are forecast to continue for, what, another 3 days?
It will stay exceptionally windy, and that's due to that battle between all this warm air that's sitting over the north and much colder air down near the south. Notice that Hobart tomorrow is only 12 degrees. Now, already today we've had gusts easily in excess of 100 kilometres per hour through parts of the southeast. Wilson's Promontory, Hogan Island, 133 kilometres per hour. Mount Wellington, Kunyani, 128 kilometres per hour. And just west of Melbourne, gusts up to 113 kilometres per hour. Now, the winds are slowly starting to die down in most of southeast Australia this afternoon. However, we still have warnings in place for damaging wind gusts for parts of southeast New South Wales, the Victorian coast and ranges, and many parts of Tasmania. So still the chance of gusts up to about 90 to 100 kilometres per hour over the next few hours. But it's certainly not over yet. Now, I mentioned there's the hot air, there's the cold air. Between the two, this fierce jet stream. Now, that's the wind about 10 kilometres above the surface. It's peaking up to 350 kilometres per hour right now. Some of those strong winds are filtering to the surface. So Saturday, Sunday, we'll continue to see these westerly gale force winds spread through southeast Australia. Now, the absolute peak in the winds, though, will arrive late Sunday and Monday. And that's when, Kath, will probably again see those gusts well above 125 kilometres per hour. OK,
Tom, a lot of people would be wondering if this record heat in August is a sign of a hotter than normal spring.
It's a question I've been asked many times, Kath, over the last couple of weeks. The good news is the weather's not that simple. Just because you get warm weather in late winter, that doesn't mean the spring is going to be warm, especially since we don't have climate driver right now. We don't have El Nino, for example. We don't have a positive Indian Ocean dipole. For the first time in a decade, we're going into a spring where the Pacific and the Indian Oceans are actually neutral. So the main driver behind this forecast for spring of above medium temperatures for most of Australia is just climate change. So you could argue we're actually going into a fairly typical spring compared to what we've seen in general over the last couple of decades. But look, it is a greater than 80% chance of being warmer than normal across the northern half of the country and also through pockets of the southeast. If we look at the rainfall prospects now, without that major climate driver, there's not a strong signal coming through. For many areas, there's an even chance of above or below medium rain. There is a slight swing towards it being wetter than normal for parts of the east, that's in the green, and there is a Small swing towards it being drier than normal through parts of the West Cape.
Tom, thanks for stopping by.